build the tallest, narrowest, strangest-looking skyscraper in Swedish history?
It's a little bit windy.
The men of Shift 1 faced an incredible challenge. Build one entire floor of the radical turning torso in a single 7-day shift. They'll have to battle the dangers, the bosses,
I don't know what to do.
the equipment, crushing hangovers,
I don't got no girlfriend.
and practical jokes to stay on schedule and keep the paychecks coming.
I earn some good money here, so I can buy me a bottle of whiskey.
7 crazy days on the 36th floor, right now on Extreme Engineering. February 2004. The buyers are scheduled to move into Sweden's coolest new apartment building in less than a year. 54 stories tall, the brochures say the turning torso will twist like a licorice stick on the way up. On a clear day, the condo owners will be able to see for miles in every direction. That is, if it can be built. Nothing like it has ever been attempted on this scale. The project is a huge gamble for the company footing the bill. To save money, the bosses have figured a grueling schedule. The construction crews will have to work a 7-day shift. That's an 80-hour week until the building is done. They will get a week off in between to recuperate before they strap on their hard hats and go at it again. And it's not just the construction company's fortune that's at stake. The future of the entire region depends on the ability of the men to get the job done. It's 6 a.m. on Thursday, day 1, for the best band of construction crew brothers that Kroners can buy. Thomas, Ulrich, Jan, Patrick, and the rest of the 21-man crew. Every one of them descended from Vikings. They'll work in punishing 45-mile-an-hour winds that will shove the temperature down below zero. How does a Viking feel about it? Vikings are men of few words.
I prefer the summer.
Tough situation creates tough guys. They are Vikings.
For these 21st century Norsemen, the adventure is not on the sea, it's in the sky.
These guys it's very much for practical jokes.
And it's no ordinary commute. An elevator hanging precariously off the side of the building hauls the men to their cold, dangerous workplace, 400 feet off the ground.
How do you like it? Is it okay?
A few minutes in the elevator, and they step out into a whole different world. Here, a good gust of wind could send a man down to his death. The crew is smart, tough, and fast. But to raise and build an entire 5,000 square foot floor, they'll need the help of their ingenious 4-story workhousing. It's called the Automatic Climbing Structure, the ACS, and the 36th floor will soon rise up around it. The sleek facade of the turning torso hides 64,000 tons of steel and concrete beneath that keep the building standing up. The automatic climbing structure is the factory for all that strength. The ACS shapes the building's concrete floor by floor. Once the core section is complete, the ACS climbs up the building. The outer floors are built on temporary platforms called table forms. The table form sections connect to provide a base for the rebar and concrete to come. Once the floor has dried, the table forms are removed for reuse on a higher floor. Looks simple. Of course, reality has a way of not cooperating. Patrick Pearson gets started moving these table form sections used to build a lower floor down to the ground for cleaning and inspection. Only then can they be hauled back up to help build the 36th floor. Not much can happen without the help of the man in the sky. Jan Newlander, operator of one of 2 cranes hanging 500 feet off the ground. Jan is the master puppeteer of the torso project. He's up so high and controls so much that the men jokingly refer to his crane as God. Jan takes the elevator most of the way to his job, but the last 20 feet he has to climb. Straight up a ladder open to the elements. Jan's used to it. Climbing down when it's windy, that's another story.
It's not fun. It's not so fun.
Jan is another man of few words. The crew down below is ready and calls up.
Yeah, now it's time.
At the call of the crew, he swings the giant fork at the end of his crane into position. The crew catches it with a guide rod and hauls it in. They slide it under the table form and lock it in place. They unscrew and fold up the table legs. And the biggest card table on Earth is ready to fly. The crew has to push the table form to guide it, trusting that Jan won't pull them straight out into space. The table forms weigh only a couple of 100 pounds, light enough for the wind to set them sailing, heavy enough to kill a man instantly. One slice down, 22 more to go. The pressure to stay on schedule never lets up. The project is behind. Just since December, 10 days have been lost to the weather. The cost of the construction has gone up by millions. So how do you explain it to the board of directors if you're in charge?
The cost has risen. The time has gone. So time costs money.
Johnny Orbach is the politician turned developer who has battled for years to realize his vision of a Twizzler-shaped building. It all began when he saw a photograph of this sculpture, designed by world-famous architect Santiago Calatrava.
I looked and saw a sculpture. It had cubes and also this twisting form. And I thought that this could be a residential building. It could be fantastic. That people didn't feel.
Orbach was sure Calatrava would love the idea, and he was wrong.
He was not so happy about just doing this. He started to make drawings about something different.
Calatrava worried that Malmo was a gritty industrial town with an abandoned shipyard, few jobs, and no tall buildings. Not exactly the kind of place for a high-rise luxury apartment building. But Johnny Orbach had a master plan to revitalize Malmo. A new bridge put high-priced Copenhagen just a 5-mile drive away from Malmo. Orbach was determined to lure the designer clothes crowd across the bridge and turn down on its heels Malmo into a hipster destination.
This house, it's art. You are living inside art. People shall point and say, look, that's where I'm living.
If we build it, Orbach believed, the Prada handbags would come. Calatrava was sold. Only one problem. World-famous Calatrava has never designed anything where people have to actually live.
There are two issues who make this building important for me. It's my first housing project, and the second one is my first skyscraper. I mean, it is a double challenge.
The architect's playing a new game, and the developer has jet-set dreams. Meanwhile, back on the job site, the future of Malmo and Johnny Orbach's career rests in the hands of the guys who have to make the turning torso a reality. The table forms are down and cleaned, and now they'll have to go right back up to begin the assembly of this week's project, the 36th floor. From above, the crane operator lowers his cable. The men on the ground secure it to the table form. And away she goes. 400 feet up, the men catch and shove the flying form by hand, careful not to fall off the edge. Scrambling like their Viking ancestors on a sailing ship, the men spend the day steering the pieces into place. couple of nails are enough to hold this piece for the moment. Down below, Peter Victorin makes sure the table form is level. The table form is tied to the building's concrete core to fix it in place. Finally, all of the table legs are screwed tight to the floor below, and one table form is done. Now all the men have to do is repeat the process 22 more times. By mid-afternoon, the 36th floor is beginning to take shape. From underneath, the table legs create a forest of steel support columns, strong enough to hold the concrete when it's poured above. By end of day, every one of the 23 table forms is in place. The guys head for home. Where do you live when you're building the most expensive piece of real estate in Northern Europe? How about just in the shadow of the turning torso, in the workers' asphalt trailer park? That's where Patrick Persson holes up to get through the week. His home and family are hundreds of miles away. Quick commute, cheap rent, even if it is a little tight on space.
When I chose to be a carpenter, it was because I was quite tired of reading in school, and this was a little bit different. I have a son named Oscar. He's 7 years. Yeah, he's really great. I really miss him when I'm here. At school, my son tells everybody that his father works at Turning Torso, and he's really proud. He loves to come here, stay in the caravan. I had to promise him to keep it after when we're done here.
Patrick better rest up. The heavy lifting begins tomorrow. Friday, day 2 of the 7-day shift for the guys on the Turning Torso. The sun is shining, but the temperature in Malmö, Sweden is hovering around 0 degrees Fahrenheit. It's not fun.
The face, the cheekbones here, gets really cold. We can't cover it enough.
Yesterday's work looks pretty from the sky. 23 tight-fitting slices of wood and metal pieced into a 5,000 square foot pie pan ready to mold concrete. But not just yet, because Friday is all about the rebar. The rebar is the building's skeleton and the source of its strength. Without it, the concrete would crumble. It might look like a weightless ballet, but don't be fooled. That's a 1.5 ton, 30-foot-long steel piano flying in. Get caught underneath one of these babies and forget the medics. They'll just make you part of the building. And how does a Viking react to the danger?
Everything is heavy. Everything you do is heavy, so it's quite difficult.
He's a Viking. What do you want, emotion? The pieces should drop right into place. Emphasis on the should. The pipes and ductwork always have to be cut to fit. Then the pieces are tied together by hand. Meanwhile, out on the edge of the building, this steel Tootsie Roll is the size of a Chevy Nova and weighs about the same. The guys are preparing for liftoff. It's the start of today's most dangerous gig, the concrete spine. The concrete spine twists up the torso, part of the support structure that protects the 9 floating backbone sections from the powerful winds that batter the building. Even with its strength, the building will sway as much as a foot in either direction on the top floor. And even an architect knows that nausea is a big turnoff for condo buyers.
Apartments are the highest category, the most difficult one to manage, because in an apartment you are quiet, you are by yourself, you are maybe drinking a coffee, and you don't want to get the feeling you are in a boat, you see. So,
fitting the spine section into its housing is tricky business, and it's easy to make a mistake. The crewman walking into the picture is Bengt Eck. The guys just call him Rocket Man. He's noticed that that big hunk of rebar in the sky is upside down. Now we know what it takes to make a Viking smile. They'll have to bring it back down and try again. And now it's time to get out on the building's edge, 400 feet up, and guide the big chunk of steel into place. No restraining belts, no safety ropes, no net. And remember, there are no straight angles here. Every concrete spine section has to fit into the one below it, tilted just slightly, at a precise angle different from the piece below. Even after a year on the job, the corkscrew construction is still driving the guys nuts. Listen to this outburst of Viking outrage from Anders Manson.
Everything is wrong, you say.
Somehow gaining control of their runaway tempers, the Vikings make it work. While the men are breaking their backs upstairs, this pile of steel tubes may derail the entire project. It's time to pay a visit to the big man. Ingvar Nolin is the Turning Torso's project director. He's in charge of every phase of production. Ingvar has made a career of difficult projects, but he's never seen anything like this.
You're in a process where things are running very fast. Things are happening every day. Every day you come to work, something has happened, and you have to react on that. What shall we do?
Ingvar's current crisis is the white tubular steel structure that wraps around the building. It's called the steel spine. It's critical for the torso's support, and it is falling apart. Like many other project parts, the pieces of the steel spine were prefabricated off-site. The steel looked good, But now that the crews are putting it up on the building, the welds are cracking everywhere. Just exactly why is a matter of dispute between Ingvar and his Spanish suppliers.
The contractor made all of them in one step, but now we sit here and they have been tested and tested and tested, and they are still no good. So we have a problem.
Ingvar's solution is to re-weld the spine sections in place. The new welds work, but they're causing a huge chain reaction of delays. For starters, the gleaming white skin of the torso, the facade, can't be anywhere near the welding sparks.
It's a domino effect on everything. We have the tiles, we have the marble, talking about the painting next week. They are expecting to be able to start then, and if we can't do that, I mean, it's disaster. Hello, it's Ingvar.
Preparing for a showdown with his suppliers, Ingvar's been reading up on the Spanish style of management, hoping to find common ground. He's not encouraged.
Here's one good one. One chief executive I talked to was proud that his departments did not communicate with each other. This meant that they could not interfere in each other's work. That's a good one. That's good.
Today, things have gotten worse. Not only are the Spanish refusing to pay for the problem, they are refusing to ship the remaining sections needed to assemble the structure. No shipment, no steel spine. No steel spine, no turning torso.
They are not sending a ship until they get a renegotiation of the contract, and but that's blackmail. What they are doing is they are committing suicide.
Unaffected by the steel spine squabble, the concrete crew on floor 36 has set down 70 tons of rebar. At the rate of 7 tons an hour, the men have worked one strong day. They can't wait to get off the building. After working all day long side by side, Ulrich and Thomas go home together. To save on the rent, they're roomies for the job's duration.
Love letters.
Oh, it's empty. No love letters. It's hard for me and Thomas because we are living together, working together. One time we get really angry on each other.
What's this? Viking rancor?
About 2 hours after, it's okay.
There you have it, the turning torso version of Jerry Springer. Believe it or not, things will get even wilder in just 24 hours when Ulrich and Thomas hit the bars. It's Saturday, day 3 of the 7-day shift on the turning torso. A good day to pour concrete. On the 36th floor, the guys have laid miles of rebar in grids all over the temporary platforms. They're ready for the biggest concrete pour of the week. But right now, all the action is on the ground. How do you deliver 120 tons of concrete 400 feet up? First, you need a steady supply of mixing trucks. Then you've got to feed it into the pump to end all pumps. The Putzmeister. At full bore, the Putzmeister sucks in up to 2,500 pounds of concrete per minute. That's 150 tons an hour. Any way you shovel it, that's a lot of concrete. Once in the Putzmeister's maw, 2,000 pounds of hydraulic pressure per square inch drives the concrete skyward. Up top, each bone-rattling boom shakes the entire 4-floor work area. Supported by the red boom arm, the concrete is squeezed up 25 feet over the work site. Finally, it flows down from a soft rubber hose. With every new floor, the Putzmeister breaks its own record. Highest concrete ever pumped in Sweden. For the guys pounding out the torso, it's only day 3. But for the boss, it's the weekend. Ingvar Nolin's retreat is 60 miles away from Malmö, by the shores of the Baltic Sea. It's his fortress of solitude, his one escape from the pressures of constant decision-making. Or not.
Hello, Staffan. Further problems. What? With the what? Oh.
It's the Spanish steel again.
What has happened? Is that,
Time to play hardball.
Nothing is correct. Oh. That's the game is over, yes, because I mean, if they can sleep on it, we give them a proposal, and if they don't accept that, we have a new meeting on Tuesday at 11 o'clock, and then we cancel the contract and send them home.
So much for getting away from it all. Back on the 36th floor, the concrete's down, but the job's not finished. They have to keep the concrete dry for it to cure properly, so the entire floor is covered with pre-cut sections of steel and wood. Finally, their cake is ready to bake, and the guys can take advantage of the one let-up in their schedule. Because when it comes to Saturday night, young Vikings are no different from any other guys.
Some beautiful girls.
Oh, yes.
Saturday nights we're going out to a bar called Mellow Yellow.
Smile, you're in candid camera.
While the guys try to shake off the shyness, Thomas gets his game on.
It's from kind of a long way from here. It sounds very different from our speak. They really like the way he talks, and if they don't want to talk to him, he just turns around and take the next table.
Thomas the Stallion.
Vi jobbar ner på Turning Torso. Turning Torso. Vet ni inte var Elmon är? Turning Torso. Det gör de.
Thomas's roommate Ulrich has an entirely different approach to the question.
I don't got no girlfriend. I think it will come. I will find the right one. She will come.
The only trouble with Saturday night is Sunday morning. It's day 4 on the turning torso, hump day in the crew's 7-day shift. While the concrete cures on the 36th floor, Ulrich and Thomas are assigned to the 33rd, the circular hallway. The circular hallway rings around the building's central core. It gives the residents something to walk on their way from the elevator to their apartments. Ladies' man Thomas has drawn the inside duty where it's safe and warm.
This is the best job in Torso. You can look out. You understand. We got it and we keep it.
Some guys get all the luck. Thomas builds the hallway the same way the upstairs team built the massive outer floors. But in this tight space, everything is done by hand. When the scaffolds are done, Thomas and the crew lay out a set of platforms to hold the floor. Getting around is tricky. Once the handmade ring of table forms is complete, they'll set down a second ring of prefab rebar. All that's left is to pour the concrete. But the massive pump used for the outer floors above won't fit in the narrow space. So Ulrich and his team have to wrestle a smaller, unsupported hose. It spits out 500 pounds of concrete a minute and kicks like an angry mule. Just the thing for a hangover.
Yeah, that is the force, the power of the pump. It's so heavy when the pump jerks. Makes me feel like I'm about 100-year-old now.
The men of the crew aren't the only ones pulling long hours. The sales force is driving just as hard.
Maybe we change apartment to this level.
Nina and Martin Hedlund are among the first to plunk down upwards of $800,000 for an apartment at the Turning Torso. And management has invited them over to admire the view.
Great. Where are we standing now with this?
This here is the middle of the living room.
Okay, so there is where you're gonna have your flat screen on that wall?
Yeah, here is the flat screen.
And I would like to have my book shop here.
Yeah?
Is it okay?
No, we have to discuss that. The kitchen over here.
Okay, so here is our bedroom.
Yeah.
It would be very interesting to see if the bed is
will fit in. Think it's good?
Yeah, it would be great.
Okay.
It would be very exciting to go in here.
2 hours later, the Hedlunds have come and gone. Ingvar's out in the country. And still, the wrestling match with the pump goes on. Finally, it's over. "20 tons of concrete have flowed over the men's backs and onto the floor. A hard day's work. And the Hedlunds will have a nice, smooth place to stand when they push the elevator button. The men are quiet as they apply the finishing touches. They need a break in the worst way. Tomorrow, nature will provide. Day 5, Monday, and the weather's turned nasty. Since their shift began last Thursday, the men on the turning torso have already worked 44 hours. Only 36 more to go to make an honest week. Up top, the wind is blowing hard, and this crew needs to get the rebar tied off so they can pour the concrete for the central core, the building's main support structure. It has to be right. Climbing on rebar in a gale force wind is not the best way to get the job done. And so, after a valiant effort, the rebar crew calls a break. All over the building, different crews are waiting out the weather. If the wind gets any stronger, another workday will be lost. Management can't afford any more delays. Sales remain slow. Costs are skyrocketing. And the board of directors has Johnny Orbach on the hot seat.
We meet 2 times per month. My role is to always look at the whole of the project. But of course, when we are talking about the economy and the financial questions, it's my responsibility.
But the Norse gods are not smiling on Johnny today. Wind over 45 miles per hour means an automatic shutdown for the elevators and the cranes hanging in the sky. Jan can feel his tower sway as he takes a wind reading and relays the information to Lars on the 36th floor. The magic number to shut down the cranes is 20 meters per second.
Vad sa du? Det ligger på 22 nu. 22 sekundmeter.
Rules is rules, and the word goes out. Come down off the building. No more work today. Jan climbs down the crane tower, and the site is quickly abandoned. Back in the office, Bjorn Nordgren tries to explain the weather to his boss, Ingvar Nolén.
Today has been a lost day, more or less. You know perfectly well, we always have this problem with the weather. I don't know what to do.
The guys get a day off, and the project grows another day more expensive. Tuesday, day 6 of the 7-day shift for Ulrich and the crew. The weather's clear, 20 degrees. And while the managers fret over the time lost to weather, Ulrich Olsen prepares for perhaps the single most dangerous job on the torso. Threading the needle from a crane 500 feet up with a 2-ton staircase through a hole at the top of the building. The staircase job begins with Ulrich on the ground, loading a section and ordering Jan and the crane to haul it up. Ulrich hops the elevator and returns to the top, while Jan braces himself for the challenge of dropping a 5,000-pound chunk of concrete through a 4-foot slot.
When I can see everything, I can do it. It's not a big problem. But the problem is when I can't see here. For the workers, it can be dangerous.
Ja, det är bra.
Ulrich becomes Jan's eyes and ears. Together they guide the staircase down by radio. The first hurdle is clearing the narrow hatch at the base of the climbing form. The stairs are too far left, so Ulrich orders an adjustment. Too much. Inch by inch, Jan and Ulrich find the way down. The crew guides the staircase the final few feet by hand. The staircase drops in, an inch too far away from the landing. And not even Ulrich can shove the 2.5 tons into place. So Jan has to pull it back up and try again. But there's a big problem. Somewhere above, where neither Ulrich nor Jan can see, the crane cable has snagged on the building. It's a tense moment. No one knows what's gone wrong or whether the cable will snap. The jolt of the snag breaking free staggers Ulrich for a moment. Nobody's hurt, so they try again. This time, Thomas decides to make sure of the fit, sliding his hands directly under the dangling 2.5-ton slab of concrete. Five men, a 500-foot crane, a 5,000-pound flight of stairs, and a 1-inch square piece of scrap that makes it all work. Ulrich, Thomas, and the crew have survived staircase duty for another week. It's a big relief to send the cables back upstairs. Not that a Viking will ever let on that he was worried.
Yeah, it's dangerous, but if you're driving the car, it could be an accident. So that's life.
Last time we saw the boss, Ingvar Nolin, he was ready to fire the suppliers of the building's faulty steel spine. On Saturday, he was defiant.
We have a new meeting on Tuesday at 11 o'clock, and then we cancel the contract and send them home.
Well, Tuesday's here. What's the deal, Ingvar?
Yeah, we are trying on different levels because we have they have engaged lawyers. We are talking about.
That's okay, Ingvar. We get it. Lawyers. The finish line for floor 36 is in sight, and the guys can't wait to get there. That rebar work delayed by the weather finally got done, and the men are almost ready to pour the concrete for the central core. This will be the end of the concrete work for the week. The Swedes' record-setting Putzmeister hydraulic pump powers the concrete 400 feet up until the Putzmeister poops out.
Something has happened downstairs with the pump to taking the concrete up to us, so we'll see.
Already a day behind, the concrete pour simply has to happen, or the crew's week will end in failure. The men check the hose for a blockage, but the hose is fine. The problem is definitely on the ground, and the pressure is definitely on the fix-it crew. As the delay gets longer, the men's good humor is tested. It's time for Plan B, which everyone on the site was hoping to avoid. The giant cranes, two of the busiest, most valuable pieces of equipment on the site, stop everything to become the world's least efficient wheelbarrows. Problems are expected in any project as extreme as the turning torso. For Bjorn Nordgren, it's situation normal, all fouled up.
There will be problems, and there are problems. We'll always be with that system of pumps and pipes and distributors. Yeah, we always have meetings about it, of course.
Suddenly, as quickly as it had stopped, the pump lurches back to life. The Putzmeister works just well enough to get the core section poured and save the week's work for now. One more day, and the crew is free. Wednesday morning, day 7. The marathon week of 12-hour shifts has reached the final turn. All of the rebar has been placed. The concrete for the floors and core has been poured and had time to dry. 68 back-breaking hours into the work week, the men are feeling it.
This is the longest day, because all day you are going to wait to go home. It's a lot of hours to work. I feel really tired. I am.
Of course, you're a little bit tired, but you have 7 days to looking forward to.
I want to be free again.
The last piece of work may be the most important of the week. Moving the team's working home, the 150-ton, 4-story automatic climbing structure, up 1 story into the empty sky, so that next week's crew has a place to start building floor 37. That's like jacking an entire Jiffy Lube station with everybody in it 10 feet off the ground. The concrete from yesterday's pour is dried, so the men start by removing the vertical core form sections, revealing the new concrete core behind it. As the team cleans and hoists the core forms, the grand architect of the turning torso, Santiago Calatrava, turns up for a visit. Construction project director Ingvar Nolin shows Calatrava the sites.
We have the Swedish record now in pumping concrete now.
Yeah.
I mean, no one has been pumping concrete so much, so high as we have.
It's very pleasant to see the system working.
Sorry. Okay.
To see the reality of the site and see how people go into the site. This is always, even for myself, extremely moving. The building is emerging from their own direct work. from their own direct supervision. The site belongs to them, the building belongs to them. They are the real ones who make it, so they are the real heroes.
The core forms are safely stowed for transport. Time for the action to move inside. At the push of a button, 16 yellow climbing beams are hauled up the core wall by a series of bright green hydraulic jacks. The climbing beams are now set to hold the entire ACS as it rises. The green jacks are switched over. They will now pull up the whole shooting match. The forms, the platforms, the support beams, and Peter Victorin and all the workers inside. It's the riskiest moment of the week. Peter's the button pusher. He will control the entire lift, and he'll take it nice and easy. If he were to push the ACS up a little too far, the whole structure could collapse and fall, taking everyone with it. For the moment, the success of the turning torso rests on the tip of Peter's thumb and his index finger. The jacks work so smoothly that the men have little to do but whistle and watch. It takes 30 minutes for the 154-ton climbing structure to rise. Looks better in fast motion. Floor 36, done in 7 days. Go crazy, guys. The future residents of the turning torso may never think twice about the incredible combination of muscle, brains, skill, guts, and good humor of the men who built it. But for the crew descended from Vikings, a quiet pride is evident.
All of us working there, when it's coming to summertime and people are talking about it, you can say, we did that bad winter on top of that building.
It doesn't matter if I build just a small bridge or a big tower, because if I'm going over with my car on a small bridge and I got my friends in my car, I always told them, this is my bridge. So I'm proud of what I've done before, and I'm proud of this. So that's okay.
The work on the turning torso will continue, 1 floor a week, all the way up to the 54th floor. And while the construction crew gets a week off to relax, the troubles for the bosses go on. Ingvar Nolin's finally on speaking terms with his Spanish suppliers, but still he can't get the shipment he needs.
Hello, Xavier. How are you? What has happened since you left Sweden last night? Nothing. So we have not come one single step forward since we met. We must find a solution on this. I mean, we can't continue like this. Okay. Will you call me back? When? 2 hours. Okay. I'll wait for you. Call me In 2 hours. Okay. Bye.
After Extreme Engineering left the job site, an agreement was finally reached with the Spanish. The suppliers got their money, and Ingvar got his new steel. But all the troubles did claim one casualty: the man who first dreamed that a sculpture could be a building. Johnny Orbach was replaced as chief executive officer of the company building the torso. Still, Orbach's dream lives on. And like all true Vikings, Johnny knows what's really important in life.
You must have love, and you must have food, and you must have a beautiful place where you can live. That makes happy people.